What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Cameron Libutti. He is the founder of Get Bidview. You can check him at bidviewmarketing.com. And, I'm excited. I'm going to formally introduce you, Cameron, in a second, but I always like to point out other episodes of the podcast people should check out. So this is part of the Top Agency series. I had on Todd Taskey. Todd Taskey is one of my favorite interviews. He helps pair private equity with agencies and helps sell agencies, right? And he has a Second Bite podcast. So, sometimes when the agency sells to private equity and the private equity sells again, sometimes those agencies make more on the second bite than they do on the first. But he talks about the agency landscape, the valuation landscape, and things like that. That's a really good one. Another one, Cameron, that was good was Kevin Hurrigan. Kevin Hurrigan has had an agency since 1995. So it's interesting to see the landscape of business, the internet, and agency worlds over a couple decades. That was a good one. And, that and many more. There's so many interesting ones. Check it out. And you can search for whatever you want in the bar, whether it's software, agencies, whatever it is. So this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. At Rise 25, we help businesses connect to their dream relationships and partnerships. We do that in two ways. One, we're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. We do the strategy, accountability, and the full execution and production behind the scenes. Number two, we're an easy button for a company's gifting. So we make gifting and staying top of mind. It could be clients, patients, partners, prospects, even staff from a culture perspective. You just give us a list of the addresses. We do everything else. And it's not, Cameron, like, oh, we send a gift once a year. It's a campaign of gifts. So I tell people, picture, we send 3 gifts a year for 4 or 5 years to someone's clients, partners, and everything like that. So we kind of call ourselves the magic elves that run in the background to make it stress-free for a company to build amazing relationships, because over the past 17 years, I found no better way to profile the people and companies I admire on my podcast and sending them sweet treats in the mail. So go to rise25.com or email support@rise25.com. I'm super excited to introduce everyone. Cameron Libutti is the founder of Bidview Marketing, and he's a 7-figure agency that helps professional service firms. So think medical, legal, advisory businesses. What they do is they drive measurable growth through data-driven marketing strategies. And he has a weird background. I was looking up your background, Cameron, like, how did he even get into this agency world? Because I'm like, wait, he studied engineering at ASU. How did he get into this? But then again, I studied chiropractic and I'm doing what I'm doing. So who knows? But over the past 12 years, he's been doing digital marketing. They've generated, over $10 million in client revenue. So, Cameron, thanks for joining me.
You're welcome.
So I'm going to pull up your site here so people can check it out, but just tell people about Bidview Marketing and what you do.
So yeah, you led perfectly. I was an engineer, building high rises in downtown Chicago. I was personally responsible for the mechanical systems, and my personality trait is entrepreneur through and through. And so the first stop on that journey was to figure out how to market a business or myself.
So were you at the point when you came out of school, were you working for another firm, or did you
that
hang up
firm
your own
is
shingle?
now that firm is now one of our marketing clients. So the CEO is the woman. She introduced me to my wife. We worked together. I was 22 years old. She was 25 years old, and it was 12 of us at this engineering firm. They're big now. They have 60 or 70 employees. She's now the CEO, but Alara Engineering, downtown Chicago, they hired me right out of college, and I worked there for 4 years. Incredible, learning experience. Being an engineer is it's unique. I have learned as I've, grown in my career, but that's so when I entered the marketing world, all I knew was the engineering world. And in the engineering world, you don't start something without knowing where you're going. And so a lot of times I would talk to people, this is way before Bidview, 2012, 13, and say, like, well, why'd you do that? Or how did you get there? Well, I don't know. They just told me it was $500 a month and we do this. And I'm like, oh, interesting. Okay. And then I got into my own marketing for my own businesses. We can skip over that, not super relevant. The young 20-year-old slinging stuff online, having a blast. But that's really where I cut my teeth in the marketing
Was
world.
that, Cameron,
Yeah.
were you doing that on the side, like moonlighting, like
No,
as an entrepreneur as you were working, or was this like after you, okay, I'm done with the engineering thing, I'm going to do marketing? Because I know a
yeah,
lot of people kind of start things slowly as they're like moonlighting stuff, build it up, and then it becomes more of a full-time thing.
yeah, that's what everyone tells you to do. And I would tell you the same. But when you're 26-year-old and you have no children, or 27-year-old and you have no children or real responsibilities, that is not how you assess risk. And so yeah, no, I just jumped in 2 feet, and I met a good friend of mine, still to this day, one of my close friends. He's about 10 years older than me, and he was a financial advisor at the time or prior. He bought a supplement. What did he buy? A supplement formula from a friend of his. His friend had, no idea. He's like, I'll buy this formula from you. It was for gout, and it was at the time 2000 when he bought it, 2011 or 12. It just wasn't a thing that people knew much about. It was before Facebook even did. I was one of the first, I should say, he and I were one of the first businesses to advertise on Facebook in the first 3 months they launched their marketing.
Hmm.
So he was, and I met him, and he's like, I was like, I just want to learn how to run any business. Just what does this look like from the ground up? And so it was just supplements. And when I started with him, I share numbers. I love numbers as an engineer. We were doing between $20,000 and $30,000 a month in revenue. At our peak in 2016, we missed $250,000 a month, I think, by less than $5,000. We were right there. And we were running a six-figure. That month we broke $100,000 in Google ad spend. And then it kind of all crashed because gout is something that is considered pharmaceutical, medical. And so the way we were successful at the time was using a huge remarketing list. We had a remarketing list of 70,000 people. And we showed up to the office one day and the list was gone. We're like, there must be a mistake here. And we called Google. They're like, oh no, that's medical data. We don't keep that. Like, oh no. So that was the company still exists.
That's the I guess risk of any of these platforms, right? They could change the
Yeah,
rules in an
change the
instant.
rules. Yeah. Uh, we work we work with a lot of audiologists. Bidview works with a lot of audiologists, and still same thing. You can't retain remarketing lists for them. We do a lot of marketing, paid marketing for audiologists as well. And it's one of the unfortunate things. I get it on the pharmaceutical side. Uh, it's tough, with audiology when it's an it's an underserved market as it is. I I forget the exact numbers, but it's something right around, I want to say it's between 20 and 50 million people have hearing loss. This is in the United States. And I want to say only about 15 or 20%. I sit through a lot of these presentations, but it's a very underserved market. So not to be able to remarket to people that do truly need good healthcare is tough. At the same time, I do get it. Google doesn't want to retain that data on these people. It is randomized. It's not like we have access to specific people, but you can't do remarketing. So anyway, back to the supplement company. That happened. I was actually at the time had started helping a real estate company, and that's where the SEO journey really started. I didn't know it at the time. I was cutting my teeth on SEO in a Las Vegas for real estate with almost to
What
anybody
kind of real
who
estate? Was it commercial or residential?
residential.
Residential.
Anybody who knows SEO will probably think I'm lying, but it's 100% true. We had zero. It was just all elbow grease and just energy. Like that was what we did. I remember those days being up for, 14, 16 hours, just building websites, building like the old school tactics of SEO, building, Google sites. And it was me. And that's how I cut my teeth. And then in 2019, a doctor said, hey, I was home for Christmas and I knew him growing up. And he said, we were talking and he said, oh, you sound different. I said, what do you mean? You talk about marketing differently. I said, I have nothing to sell you. And he said, well, I want you to help me. I said, I'm not. I did consulting. I was an engineer. I did it. I'm not doing it. Not doing it again. He goes, no, no, no. Like I think this could work. And so he was our first. It's why we set up the LLC to take payments from him. And he sold his practice actually in November last year.
So when he
So
met with you, when you met with him first time, you were telling him, you were basically saying, "Hey, here's some of the stuff I've done. I've done these paid ads. I've done this SEO ranking." And he's like, "Let's do it." Right?
no, I
Or
told him
no?
one thing. I
Okay.
said, his name's John. I said, John, why? Um, what's going on with your at the time Google My Business? What's going on with your Google My Business? He said, what do you mean? I said, you have like 5 of them, all in the same location. He said, I have no idea what you're talking about. I was like, you have 10 reviews. It's all the data's all a mess. I said, just fix your Google My Business. He's like, I don't. What are you talking about? And I mean, right, he just sold his business and retired, so he's in his 60s now. But he started this business or took over this business in his 30s. He's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I said, well, and I showed him. He's like, I don't know. Can you do that? And I said, well, I can. I don't. He goes, I want to pay you. I'm like, all right. And he was the one who pushed
You're
me.
like, "All right."
All right, I'll
You're
do
like,
it.
"Fine."
And but like the real estate stuff was going well. I was actually considering moving to Las Vegas at the time. But he said, let's push this. Let me see if we can figure this out. So that started in July. I fixed his GMB or yeah, it's Google My Business, GBP now, Google Business Profile. And he had, we tripled his phone calls just through that panel alone in the first 3 months. I remember he sent me a picture of that December. December historically in the audiology industry, it's regional, but for him, December was never a huge month. And they have this pegboard up in the back office. It's big. It's got to be 6 feet long and 4 feet high. And he said in 30 years, so that's where they hang the hearing aids that are waiting to get picked up. It was the first time in 30 years the whole board was full. They had no more room to hang a hearing aid. And it was at that time, it was only the Google Business Profile driving leads. That was it. That was the entry into marketing. And then he just started telling people, he's like, this is wild. I mean, Google My Business at that point people were starting to catch on, not like it is today, but the lead gen people knew early, 2015, 16, a lot of spam was happening. They started to crack down in 2018 and 19, but it was still wide open. And then that was the point. And all the businesses that came because of him. He just started introducing me to doctor after doctor after doctor. And that's when we took off.
To me, I hear that, and it's interesting because sometimes I feel when I'm talking to business owners, they overcomplicate things, right? You're like, you had
Yeah.
one simple offering that worked,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously expands from there, right?
Yeah.
But one simple offering that worked,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So I'm curious on the evolution of the services. So it started because when I look at your site, you offer a number of services,
Yeah.
right? So it started with paid ads, it sounded like, with the supplements. And
Yep.
then with the real estate, you're like, okay, we do SEO,
Mm-hmm.
search engine optimization stuff for ranking. And
Yep.
then you have Google business profile optimization, obviously. And obviously you manage websites. And it sounds like too, like you do newsletter marketing too. So is that something you'll do for, I mean, at least
Yeah.
as from a chiropractor, sometimes I would just share, we actually email people,
Yeah.
and like, what? How are you doing that? Right. And so it's just simple things that I feel like people just aren't doing,
Yes.
right? And don't know. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about, and then we
Yeah.
could we could talk about AI, right? Because search
Yeah.
engine optimization, goes into now people are searching through ChatGPT and some of these other LLMs. And so how do you get found on the next phase, right?
Yes.
Of AI.
Yeah. So all of our services, you read this in like business books and stuff. You provide services when somebody like you try not to, it's find like the right market fit. And for us, it was just somebody asking us to do a thing that I knew how to do. That was pretty much it. So it started with the Google Business Optimization, and then our second client that came, Ken. He said, "I need you to do what you did for John." I said, "Okay,"
I
and
need you to triple the number of patients we have in December.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
And we are I loosely know numbers, but I'm not going to share those. But
Yeah.
we are responsible for approximately 1/3 of his revenue over the last 5 years, Bidview. And so with him, he came in, he said, "I need you to do what you did for John." I said, "Okay." And this is where like the strategy stuff started with him. So two things happened. I said, "Okay, I need access to your website." He said, "Yeah, no problem." And then he goes, "Talk to this person in my office." And she says, "Oh, that website's broken." "What do you mean it's broken?" He told me like I can have access to it. I don't know. I know what he told you, that you can't have it. Like it doesn't work. Okay, what are we gonna do? I don't know. He's like she was just like, "I don't know. You didn't hire, I didn't hire you, he did." And so that's when we started building websites. Long road of building websites, different ways to do it, how to work with clients, and that
Well, that
brings me
makes
back
sense
to,
also
yeah.
because, like, one, if you're sending traffic to a page
Mhm.
that's not optimized for
Correct.
conversion,
Yep.
then they're just paying for traffic to go into the ether, right? And so, same
Exactly.
thing with building the proper content on it so that it leads to an action from someone.
Yes.
I've gone to websites, even doctors, like, how do I find the contact? Like, why is there not a contact thing? I can just easily call them. I mean, that's what I'm
Right.
looking to do. So,
Or hours, or yeah, where are they located?
and I'm going to
Yeah.
bounce off of it. I mean, people have a short attention
Yeah.
span.
Oh yeah. I have a great story about bouncing off of websites. Well, I'll come back to in a second. But that's when it's like that's when like the strategy of Bidview clicks. So you just read off all the things we do. Very rarely, I can't even remember the last time someone came to us and said, "I need this, do this service." They usually come to me and they're like, "Hey, we heard about you. Can you help?" And then all the questions pour, like, "How are you getting business now? What is your customer acquisition cost?" Nobody knows that. What all those questions follow. And so, we have a medical practice in the Carolinas. She's on a bunch of islands. She has about 12,000 people in her town. I'm like, I don't know. My name's Meg. Meg, I can't. We have to get outside of the town. SEO will win, but you only have 12,000 people versus, the a medical practice that we have in like Rochester, New York, not a huge area, but there's about 1 million people there. Like that's a different. So those are questions that are like, "Well, I want you to do what you did for that doctor." Well, that doctor has access to 1 million people, or we have practices in Austin. She has access to 9 million people. Like there's just different strategies here. Even if you're in the same industry, then we get in different industries and it all changes. So most people come to us, and that's where the strategy starts. And so kind of what I alluded to earlier was, as an engineer, I couldn't build a boiler plant for a building and just be like, "I don't know, feels like they need 1 million BTUs." That seemed like I would have gotten sued into oblivion, right? So you had to calculate based off of the building what the load was, and that's how much heat you gave them, and that's what you designed to. well, for me, it was the same thing with marketing. And so I would be like, well, where are we trying to get? Let's work off the back. And if SEO is, if local organic is there, if it's accessible, to me, that's always the highest ROI. There are situations, and famous situation, which I fired them as clients, but was I won't name the city, a very large top 10 metropolitan area in the United States, personal injury attorneys. I said, this is what it'll cost to compete. And they're like, yep, we can do that. It was kind of like an ego thing with them. And I'm like, yeah, oh yeah. Okay. I'm like, you have the stomach for this? They're like, oh yeah. Yep. 100%. They in fact did not have the stomach for that. And so I'll be really honest and upfront with what those costs are. And I'll show you how I arrived at that, but I'm not guessing. This is not a feel good thing. This is what the data says. This is how I priced it. And this is where we're at. We'll work back. Now, to that point, I've had photographers come to me and she's like, I sell this. This is a really weird industry. I've helped a couple of these photographers randomly, but I won't even say weird. It's unique. Boudoir photography. And she was in the middle of a Midwest state with very little clientele. So she's like, I want to do SEO. You did SEO for this agency in this big city. And I said, I did, but you're not in that big city. Like we can only run ads. And so, for her, it was a different strategy. So back to your point of all the things we do. Yes, we do a lot of those things, but it usually is me helping to build that strategy around what is appropriate versus somebody coming in and saying, these are the things that I want. And that's how we ended up at newsletters. So if you do send newsletters, you probably know the ins and outs of some of the technical setup. But what had happened, I had done this a while ago. I was for the supplement company, I was doing it. So I had gotten really good at sending huge mailing lists, which has gotten harder and harder and harder. One of our medical practices, they had about 15,000 people on their email list. And they were just using their home root domain. So it was just, businessname.com. And they were just once a month, they would just hammer it. And all of a sudden their open rate, they had a good open rate, just disappeared. And they're like, what? They had just moved over to us. We weren't even doing their email yet. And we weren't even going to do their email. And they're like, Cameron, it's dead. And I'm like, well, you need that for your remarketing work. And they said, well, help. And so that's when we started building newsletter servers. So, for the people that are listening, rule of thumb, if you have a list over 2,000, that's where you want to start thinking about subdomains or secondary domains off of your main domain or your main business domain if you're using that for other purposes. But that's a good rule of thumb. And then some other data behind that, depending on who's listening.
Will you typically recommend clinics to use like an external, like setting through whatever, ActiveCampaign or MailChimp or Aweber or one of these type of services that kind of acts as that intermediary, so they're not sending directly from their domain? Or
yeah, so we set it up on the top. We use one of those email service providers, but then we set it up custom. So it could be hello.business.com. So we'll set up a subdomain. And then that protects the main domain if for whatever reason that gets marked spam. We also don't know. We try to ask these questions, but how many emails do you send a day? The real answer is usually 30 to 40 with most businesses, but they're like, I don't know. Well, you're sending 30 or 40, and then all of a sudden you're hitting you're hitting your mail server with, 5,000. That's a signal. It's a little off. So that's another reason we set it up like that. Sometimes it's hard to get access to everything that they have. So the technical terminology, the SPF records, the DKIM, the DMARCs, we can control that a little better on our end with the subdomain. So that's our preference. A lot of the doctors just don't want to do it either. They'll write it, but they're just like, here, send it to our account manager, and she uploads it and cleans it up, makes it look good, tests it. That's another thing. They don't test it. They just hit send. The images aren't rendering, the subject line isn't right. So and for us, it's the way we price it as just a function of the email list, right? So the bigger the list, the more expensive it is, because that's how we get charged through our mail servers. So that's how we got into that. We don't do that a ton for our clients. We, maybe 20% of our clients do that, but some fun data for you. We'll see in 2025, that data isn't out yet, but in 2024, of all of our clients, the best performing ones did both SEO and newsletter marketing. That pair was the highest revenue practices that we worked with were those two things. It's just, and the other thing, this is another thing I'll talk about with newsletter marketing that I think people get wrong. A website is all about the patient, right? When they come there, or the viewer, whatever your business is, when somebody lands on your website, it's all about them. It's nothing, the only reason you are there is to help them. If you're on there, if you're listing your credentials, it's to show them that you can help them. It's about the reader. Once somebody comes in and they know you, your communication with them no longer has to be about the subject or the problem. So we'll use audiology and hearing loss. When they get there, they're having a problem. Hopefully you've solved that problem after they've seen you, but at some point in time, they're going to need to come back to you, and you want to remind them of that. They now have a relationship with you. I call it, you can talk about yourself at that point. We see the best performing newsletters when it's about you, your character. So a lot of our audiologists do nonprofit work. So we talk about that. We talk about the people in the office that they've hired. They talk about their pets for some of them. And some people are really involved in like music. Of course, that goes hand in hand with audiology. They talk about that. So whatever they're into, people love reading about. They have a relationship now. It's almost like your private social media. Once a month, we send that out, and I just looked across all of our accounts. On average, we get between a 50 and 60% open rate. So pretty crazy open rate doing it that way versus the old way of talking about basically taking an old blog post and putting that information in. You're lucky to get a 20% open rate on that. Yeah.
I want to get into the AI SEO piece, but I want to just point out a couple things. One, I just like your approach on, even for the first client, like you were just trying to help, add some value. Hey, this is trying to fix. And most people, we do the same thing. It's like, hey, you should be doing X, Y, Z. And the right type of client is like, I don't want to do that. Like, I want to focus on what I do, and you take care of that. Okay, happy to help. The other thing is it's very data driven and like setting expectations. So even with the PI, right? It's like, listen, we're looking at the top search or whatever has these number of backlinks, and here's all the data, and this is what it's going to take to produce this number of articles or whatever it is.
Yeah.
This is what it's going to cost, right?
Yeah.
And some people like say yes, and like in the end, some people, yeah, you told me this, and some people forget you tell them that, and so
Yep.
I get that. But there's an expectations which is set. It's like, here's the reality, even if it's a 12,000 person island versus like this is a different scenario here. And so I can see also the evolution of the services as people are asking you to, you're a trusted advisor at that point. They're like, hey, can you help with this? And things are, from the AI perspective, are changing people's behaviors, right? Instead of going to Google, they're going to ChatGPT or even within Google, looking at Gemini. So what are you find mistakes in the AI SEO world, and what's working? What should people think about?
So the first mistake I'm finding is that people are reacting too fast, meaning that for the first time, we'll jump outside of a lot of local professionals for a second, because we also work with some national large organizations. For the first time, the CEOs, the COOs, the CFOs, which those are the ones that probably, are the most challenging to work with. For the first time, they're now thinking about SEO. They're like, all we see is AI, AI, AI. What controls AI? Oh, this is AI SEO or AI, whatever, geo, or how there's a million acronyms right now. And so they're in this panic of the hype cycle, which there's a million AI hypes, right? There's all this crazy hype around AI right now. Some good, some bad. And they think they have to do this special AI SEO, and good, I don't know if I want to call them good, business owners see an opportunity to sell that as a service, uh, for better or for worse. And so they're telling them there are secrets or, special ways to do this. We'll get into tactics in a second, but the first thing I want to point out is if you really look at the data, the search traffic that Google traditional organic search is seeing is not decreasing, but you keep hearing this number. Google search used to be 95% of traffic, then it was 92%, and now it's 90%. That is true. That is fun with numbers, though, because if you look at the total search volume, that is actually up. There's just more search volume in general. So what that means is that the search engines are getting better at delivering better results, keeping people in the ecosystem delivering answers. And so the AI portion of it is adding to it. And so that's why it looks like the total percentage is decreasing while the AI is increasing. But the tactics that we need to think about of how this works. The bottom, this is, I don't know how familiar you are with top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. Historically, top of funnel has always just been informational searches. So in the past, somebody might say, they might have like a tax question. They Google that tax question and they hit a tax attorney and they're like, oh, there's my answer. And they leave. That was great. And that person would register a hit, and he saw some traffic. They got their answer and they moved on. Well, now they're using either AI overviews or they're getting answered the 0-click type stuff that's happening in Google. They're getting the answers right there. That person was never converting anyway. I mean, very rarely. Where they do convert is when they start to say, tax attorney Chicago, you better win that because that person is ready to buy. Now, there are other top of funnel strategies, but if we're just strictly speaking about, organic, that bottom of funnel search is still traveling through the paths that it's always traveled. You will hear people say, I got a lead from ChatGPT or this or that, and that is happening. It's anywhere from, I would say for our clients, we're seeing about 1%. If I look at all of our form fills over the last 6 months, maybe 1% get tagged ChatGPT. So that shouldn't be ignored. But then the second question is, well, what do you need to do to capture all that? And that, we want a quick history lesson that takes us back to 2015 when people weren't paying attention to SEO. So 2015 is when Google started to transition away from their algorithm team. So they used to have, I remember the number was over 10,000 people worked at Google, and their only job was to tweak the algorithm every day. They show up and they just turn the dials, right? They would weight it and change it and they would move it. Between 2015 and 16, they transitioned to the algorithm. Like that happened. That is a machine. At the time, we called it machine learning, but it transitioned into this machine learning algorithm. So the algorithm on the backside is always evolving. It always has been evolving. It's evolving today. What is changing today that's catching everybody's attention is what's happening on the front side. And so the systems that you need in place are evolving, but they're not changing at the rate that people think because they're equating what's happening on the front side with user search behavior or the platforms as SEO when the algorithm is still using the website, your citations, your Google business signals, if you're a restaurant, how many cell phones are passing through the door. All of those signals are still strong and exist. And that's what we're still optimizing for. And that is working to rank you on the AIs. I talk about that a lot. Did that make sense?
So what you're saying is it's the same fundamental things that people should be doing for SEO is what's going to work in the AI SEO or whatever the term people are using.
Yes, correct. Yep.
because it's still engaging with the algorithm of search
Hmm.
regardless. So that's content, that's
Yep.
video, that's a lot of things that people would do to rank better from search engine side in general. Is that
Yeah.
accurate?
Yeah. So some of the things we've noticed that it's weighted maybe like just slightly different on ChatGPT. Um, if I were to be a betting person, I'm not a big better, but I do think Google Gemini will in the long run win out in this game. They have the data. They're completely vertically integrated. They're the only ones of all of the AI players that don't use NVIDIA chips. They use their own Google TP. They're called TPUs, tensor processing units. They're not using GPUs. So they're vertically integrated. I truly believe they still have the best engineers there. And Gemini is if you have a chance to pull up charts, but Gemini's percent, if you just look at the AI search, Gemini's catching quickly. And I think that's only going to accelerate this year. Their Gemini model, just their visual reasoning and all of that is so good. I think ChatGPT or OpenAI is going to have a hard time keeping up with them this year. And so, if the Google's going to figure out how to monetize that at some point, and if you own a business or you're marketing, you're gonna want to be in there when it happens. But Google's not going to just let they make money through ad revenue, and they're not going to just let that disappear. They're going to figure out ways to integrate all of that um, into their ecosystem. And Google's ads have worked. So 4 years ago, Facebook was awesome. I'd say the last 2 years have been really bumpy for Facebook. Some people will do really well on Facebook. Some people will struggle on Facebook. But the last 2 years, just across the board, we've seen a lot of success on Google Ads, which if you would have asked me 3 years ago, I would have told you Google Ads are people kind of had learned to skip past them. Marketers adjusted, Google adjusted. They figured out how to stop. I shouldn't say that, but it's not as spammy as it was in the past. People realize like we can pay for these spots. We don't have to oversell. We can provide good value. We used to never run paid ads to a homepage ever. That was like a golden rule. Do not run traffic to a homepage. If we design the site, we will do that now because we found, it was a different user path in 5 years ago. You had to trap that visitor on a paid ad and you needed to convert them or you not. Where SEO, you had to let them wander. You had to let them solve the problem. And we're finding now with the ads, you can let them wander a little bit. They'll still convert. So these are marketing strategies, they evolve over time. You got to be flexible.
Yeah, Cameron. Thanks for sharing that. I did an interview. People could check it out with Nicole Donnelly, who, she travels all over, talks about AI, and she has a resources page. So basically we broke down every tool that she
Yeah.
recommended and what she liked, what she didn't like. She's tested all of them. And she was saying a lot of the tests they were running across any of the LLMs that Gemini was winning on several accounts,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
compared to the other ones. So you
Mhm.
can check out that interview. I'm not going to do it justice in this brief time, but
Yeah.
yeah, if you want to learn about more AI tools,
Mhm.
we break down like all the stuff she's tested and what was
Yeah.
working because I geek out on that stuff too. On that front, Cameron, I'm curious, tech stack. Like, what are your favorite tools, software? It could be project management, it could be, pipeline tools, it could be whatever. What do you like to use as a company?
Well, as a company, we have our favorites. We are in Google Drive, of course. Our business is ranking people on Google, so we use Google Drive. Um, and then we're in ClickUp. I have a love-hate relationship with all task management software.
Yeah, we use
Um,
ClickUp and we like
yeah,
ClickUp actually.
we like ClickUp. It's
Yeah.
been the one that's worked the best for us. We use Slack to talk to each other. There's 13 of us here, and then we have a handful of outside vendors, but 13 of us. The issue with the Slack ClickUp stack is that the team gets really comfortable in Slack, and then the project communication is not always getting uh, um, tracked in ClickUp. So that's more of an operational thing on my end and our chief of staff of trying to make sure people are communicating in the right places. Um, but those would be the things we use the most on websites. We build all on WordPress. Um, we just for SEO, it's still the most customizable. It's still I have strong opinions on this, but anybody, I'm hard pressed if you're not doing at least $10 million a year. There's we can make an argument for Shopify depending on what your business is, but if you're not doing $10 million a year, to not have people get sold these proprietary sites and then they can't move them, they can't edit them. They need real developers. You need a developer, a highly paid developer to get in there. I just like these platforms that make it easy for you as a business owner to manage or own or transfer. Like you called me a consultant earlier. I take that to heart. I don't want to own anything you do. Like you paid me for my time and you own it, right? And so we've run into some marketing companies that build, they'll even in WordPress, but you don't own the website, you're renting it and they'll throw it out when you leave. So I don't, that's like a big no-no for me. So we're in WordPress. We use our design team uses Figma. We love Figma. Love it. Love it. So that's part of our design process. We have a pretty dialed in design process now. Really good discovery call for what you're looking for, who you are, what you're messaging and branding and positioning. That's for business owners who haven't dealt with a marketing agency like ours, it can be a little overwhelming at first because I'm going to talk to you about like who you are, who you identify with, who's your ICP, ideal customer profile. A lot of these business owners under $2 million have never really thought about that. They just had a great service or they were a doctor and they're like, I don't know, I sell hearing aids or I'm a chiropractor. I'll see whoever needs it. And then you start to identify these qualities of who you are and who your patients are. And we try to pull that out. And then we go into Figma. We love Figma. It's been to show somebody what a website's going to look like. My wife just started her own medical, well, I guess we'll call it a practice, lactation consultant. And she saw the Figma. She's like, this is incredible, and so it's been a good workflow. We try not to rely too heavily on any one thing, but those are the things we do use a lot. And then on the AI side, my content team, we do not use ChatGPT to just push content. We are very tight. We have very strict guidelines here on how you build content, how you write content through a positioning standpoint for the practice or the business. We use ChatGPT. We give it very tight guidelines, but it helps us, right? I think everybody at this point is. I talked to a lot of law firms. They are. They're not supposed to be, but I know they are. And then Claude Code I'm using for me and one of my senior developers. We use it quite a bit. We build plugins and stuff like that. And then Gemini is our visual reasoning. I'm very good at conversion rate optimization, but to teach somebody who maybe only has, 2 or 3 years how to do it helps. You can take an image of a website or even if you're sending a mailer out, give me some opinions. You still need to be the expert. I'd say, 50% of the time it catches some pretty good stuff. 50% of the time it's like, well, we didn't do that because of XYZ. You don't have that information, so you wouldn't know that. But so we transition between the three of those quite a bit. So those would be our main technology things.
Yeah, it's funny. That is a pet peeve of mine when people give tasks in Slack because that's where things die. If there's not a task. So I don't know who set this up early on, but someone in our team set up a Slack bot. If it detects verbiage of a task, it says immediately, don't Slack me, exclamation. That's what ClickUp is for. And so I'm not sure how we set it up originally, but I'm looking at like last week and my business partner, John, wrote something. Yeah, can you prepare a spread, blah, blah, blah. And then it says immediately, don't Slack me. That's what ClickUp is for. And so, because we're the ones who break the rule more than the team. So anyways, maybe look into that because
I will look into
it. It's I'm not even sure how we set it up a long time ago, but there's a way to do it automatically and detects it. I wanted to talk about offers. Okay.
Yeah.
Because when you were talking about the audiology, you're doing paid ads, you're doing for the audiology practices, for the supplements. I'm curious. We're going to go back to the supplements, but I want to know like what offers worked. Like, is it like a buy one get two free? Is it a discount? And then maybe we'll talk about what are some of the ad copy that is working for medical practices?
So it depends. I hate this is like the joke in marketing. It depends.
Exactly.
You got to put yourself in the position of your buyer. So where are they? How, if we're talking about medical or chiropractic, like how much pain are they in, right? Uh, Versus if I'm thinking about marketing, Bidview, they're not in pain. They're in discomfort. There's a million things they want: more money, more leads, more other, but that trust cycle takes longer, right? So how do I build that trust? I mean, no shame in saying that's why we do these podcasts, right? Someone can hear us talk and be like, oh, I identify with how he speaks
Yeah.
or
You're like, this
thinks.
guy kind of sounds knowledgeable. I think I'll call him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But getting that cold email from a marketing company is the war, right? I get them all day. I'm sure you get them all day. We get them all day long, and it's awful. Like I don't trust you through an email. You don't have an offer
Well,
strong
not only that, just the message itself is terrible, right? It's
message.
like,
Terrible.
I'm like, how are you sending this? This can't be working. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Sending up 3 paragraphs of what you do to someone who doesn't know you.
exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I guess talk supplements for a second. I'm just curious on
Mhm.
the supplement side. What were some of the things that worked? I know we're dusting off the cobwebs for a second.
Yeah.
And then maybe we'll talk audiology. But what was
Mhm.
working in Facebook at that time before they changed
They changed the rules.
yeah,
So we did a bunch of supplements, but the one that we knew the best was gout. So if you know anything about gout, it's extremely painful. They will pay almost any amount of money to make it stop like just make it stop. So for those who don't know what gout is, it's basically needle-like crystals in your joints, like actual crystals. So think about a needle inside of your big toe or your fingers, and if you move, it just stabs. Like that is what gout is. And so they're in pain. They're in so much pain. Uh, and they think there's some secret out there, but they've also been scared by the pharmaceutical company. I haven't kept up with it, but at the time, 10 years ago, the pharmaceutical drugs that fixed this were nasty. Like they had some pretty severe side effects. So they wanted to do whatever they could to stop it. And so we just were really aggressive in, you couldn't say, I can't remember the language now.
probably cure, like something
You
like
couldn't say,
that,
you could
right?
never
Yeah.
say cure, right? But you alluded to removing pain, right? Like delete, like get rid of the pain. Uh, and this at the time, we tested this and tested this and tested this. The ugliest, most awful landing page you have ever seen converted. Like it was like, what? There's no, and we were good. We had good designers and we could good copy. And it was just this super long, and it was just walls and walls of testimonials because we had them. We had so many testimonials at that point. Um, and so it was this combination of getting rid of your pain and just proof it worked. And it did. It did. There were some, caveats about it, but if somebody was people don't know this, in the United States, supplements are manufactured to a 185-pound person. At least that's how it used to be. I don't know if they've changed that since. It's roughly around how it is. And so you'd get a 250-pound man. He'd be like, this stuff doesn't work. It's like, if he called me, I'd be like, you can take more, but you can't like legally put that on the website. But at the same point, like a 130-pound woman would be taking the recommend. We just legally, like, it's not on us, even because we weren't the manufacturer. We own the formula. But anyway, so those were the things. And then the reoccurring subscription was huge. We were doing about 1/3, maybe a little more, 40% of our monthly revenue was people just would take it because they just never wanted it to come back. And so it would work to help flush the uric acid out of the uric acid is what led to those crystals. Flush that uric just month after month. So we get a lot of people on the recurring subscription. We always did discounts for the recurring subscription. We did discount for 3 bottle packs, and then the main bottle, single bottle was I want to say $40. But yeah, giving discounts, free shipping at that time. Oh my gosh. If something costs, and think about this psychology, even for yourself today, if you jump into order form, they'll say, $7 more for free shipping, and you'll go pay $20 more for so raise the price of something to offset it so you can say free shipping. That always works. That still works. I don't know how many e-commerce listeners are here. I have a friend here in Chicago, a very successful golf business, and they took all of their data. I think he used ChatGPT for it, and their understanding of the business was $100. Like they were always trying to get the cart value to be $100, and so they would recommend their programming would recommend something to $100. And they threw in ChatGPT, and ChatGPT said, no, the number is 100. This is really specific. It's $143. And he's like, okay, that's so random. Fine, we'll test it. It was $143. So they changed it to always recommend up to $143 to get your free shipping. And I forgot, he told me what the percentage of revenue increase. So whatever that order value is, find it and push it to give free, but whatever that number is, that seems to work really well. So those are some old tricks from the supplement company. Yeah.
I mean, I realize one camera at the top of the hour. I just want to thank you, but this is instructive, I think, for any business. It's like, even whether it's supplement, it's medical practice, it's legal, you talked about, you focus on the pain points, right? You hit on as much proof and testimonials as possible. And that works across any industry, right? And so I just want to encourage people to check out bidviewmarketing.com to learn more. And Cameron, this has been great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like $100 grand.